What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training. And today we're going to be talking about 3 things that quarterbacks must do to be a more accurate passer, okay? So we're going to be talking a lot about your upper half throwing mechanics. We're going to be talking a lot about your hip drive, how you guys can produce torque and how that can lead to accuracy. And then we're going to be looking at a clip from Kyler Murray showing how you guys can be more accurate on the run, okay? So I hope this video helps you guys out, teaches you a few new things about throwing mechanics, how you guys can be more accurate and deliver that ball on a strike every single time. But also, fellas, if you're a quarterback, it's not just about the physical traits. It's not just about being accurate. It's not just about having the strongest arm in the world. You also have to have the mental side of things. You have to have a high football IQ. So if you want to improve your football IQ, check out that very first link in the description where you guys can learn how to read defenses correctly. We have over 400 videos on our website broken down into playlists just like this, where it's cover 3. This is one of our cover 3 playlists. We have probably over 100 videos on cover 3. Then we have cover 2, cover 4, different play concepts, RPO section, everything that you need to know to improve your football IQ as a quarterback. So check out that very first link below if you want access to those videos. We have 4 new uploads every week. Let's get started with this video. So we're looking at Matt Ryan right here throwing, and the biggest thing I want to focus on is the front side mechanics, okay? So this is something that a lot of quarterbacks struggle with. This is something that's been incorrectly taught for a very long time, right? And then we're going to talk about how the lower half builds into the upper half. So you want to think of your body as like it's split down a midline, right? So you got this line going down the middle of your body, right? Or some people think of it as the spine, right? I really don't care which way you think of it, but it's just got to tie into this front side. So what a lot of quarterbacks were taught to do from the time that they were young is to take this front elbow and to swing it down as hard as they can to be able to get power. And they'll think that, oh, that gets me that real high release point, and that's what I want, to be able to get it over those linemen. That's incorrect. You don't want to swing the elbow down, because what that does, what that will cause is a quarterback to miss very high and a quarterback to miss low, because you're going to be coming down on the ball, right? So you see when Ryan goes to throw here, you want to almost leave that front hand like you're eating a sandwich right by your face, right? So you see how Ryan, he's just eating a sandwich. That thing's right by his face. Or some people like to think of it as that you want to keep your hands steady, but you want to bring your chest to your front hand. Now, why is that important? That's important, one, because that will help you generate torque. And we're going to be talking about that in a clip with Joe Burrow in a second, where his lower half's going to be transferring through to get his hips to rotate. And when you combine that with a tight front arm, that gives you more of like that whip, if you will. But for right now, we're just going to mainly focus on accuracy, because you see when this front hand stays there and you're bringing your chest to your front hand, that's what gives you this release point right here. Now, what a lot of people will do is, like I said, they'll take that elbow and they'll swing it down. Now, your body's on that midline. Like I said, that's what brings me back to it. If you're on the midline and your front side swinging down, that release gets pushed up. And when your release gets pushed up, if you release it too early, that thing's going to sail high. If you release it too late, you're coming down like a pitcher, and that thing's going to go straight in the dirt. So if you guys could keep that front hand here, like you're eating a sandwich, your chest is going to your front hand, that gets you that consistent release point, right? So that's the first thing that it takes to be a more accurate passer. We have to try to get to this release point. Now, if you're changing up the arm slot, like you're trying to throw around a defender, maybe you have a little bit of an awkward throw, different story. We're not there yet. But for this specific case, a basic throw like this, we're just sitting in the pocket. That's what we need to do. Now, another thing guys like to do is they like to take that shoulder and replace. That's another old school method of teaching things. Like, right, you see how Matt Ryan's shoulder's like pointed at number 30 over here? A lot of guys are taught to, okay, you want to replace where your back shoulder was with your front shoulder. You want to get this front shoulder all the way around, because that's how you're going to get power and get rotational force. That's not the case, because guess what happens if your shoulder goes out? Not your elbow going down, but what happens if your shoulder goes out? That's going to make your follow through come out as well, right? So if you keep swinging this front shoulder and you don't keep those shoulders level and those hips level to the target, I call it staying square, because you see how I'm able to draw a square with Ryan's body. That's what's going to make this arm fly, as I like to say. So if you swing your front shoulder way open, your arm's going to fly, and then your release point is going to be coming across your body. And when your release point comes across your body, you like to miss right or you like to miss left, right? So you miss left to right rather than up and down. And that's why a lot of guys throw sidearm. That puts a lot of stress on their arm. And when you guys have an undisciplined front side, you're throwing with your upper half. You're using more of your arm than you need to. You got to make sure you get your lower half involved and keep that front side quiet. So long story short, you want to bring your chest to your front hand. You want to try to stay as level as possible with your shoulders and your hips, and keep that hand somewhere by your face like you're eating a sandwich. Don't be a robot with it. Still be relaxed, but that's the key point that we want to get to. That's what's going to give you that accurate release point, okay? So let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Now we're going to be looking at a clip from Joe Burrow, and we talk about how the lower half is going to tie into the upper half. Because if you guys are solely just focused on the upper half and you're not really engaging your hips and your weight transfer with your lower body, you're not going to be getting any power on this thing, and you're going to feel like you're just short arming the ball, right? So you see Burrow coming through, very smooth throwing motion, right? But the one thing I want to point out is his lower half is what makes this throw. So let's talk about what we just focused on, right? So you see how when he rotates through, where's that front hand, right? Front hand, it's like he's bringing his chest. Look at his shoulders stay square, and that front hand's by his face like he's eating a sandwich. And guess what? He's got a very consistent release point. His release point is not super high. His release point is not super wide, right? So that's how it ties in. But now a lot of quarterbacks will do this, but they forget about below the waist, right? Below the waist ties into accuracy just as much as the front side, because if your front side is restricted, like let's say because a lot of guys will do this, they'll bring that hand back to their chest, they'll stay square, but they don't engage this. It feels like you're pushing the ball and you have no power on this thing. Your power comes from your lower half. It's like hitting a baseball, right? When you hit a baseball, you're not leaving your legs behind and just hitting with your shoulders. You're squishing that back bug. You're getting your hips to rotate through. Same thing as a quarterback. So how do we do that, right? So when you guys get to a throw, you see how Burrow's back leg, it's underneath his frame, right? Like a lot of quarterbacks have that back leg super wide, and quarterbacks who have that back, like very wide base, they tend to bring their back leg up. They tend to swing their leg up because they don't have any weight transfer. Their front hip locks out and they throw at their shoulders and they have this real long, powerful motion simply because their hips aren't engaged. The goal is to be able to get that front hip to open up. It's because of the weight transfer from the back leg. So you see when Burrow goes to throw, he want to shift the weight. It's not a push off the back leg like a pitcher. It's a shift of the weight. You want to shift the weight from this back leg to the front leg, because when I can get more weight on my front leg, see how much his front hip opens up. What I want you guys to do, try something for me. I want you guys to stand up, have all your weight on your back leg. You pause the video, whichever. Have all your weight on the back leg and try to rotate your hips. Your front hip will lock out. Now, shift all your weight to your front foot and try to rotate your hips. It's a lot easier to rotate your hips when you have all that weight on your front leg, right? So that's the goal when we're trying to throw, because if I could get this front hip to open up, that goes through before the ball, and then my front side doesn't need to work as much, because as a quarterback, we're a rotational athlete. We're either going to rotate from my hips or we're going to rotate from my shoulders. One of the two, right? So you see when he comes out here, that weight transfer is going good. His front hip is opening up. And then when you combine that front hip rotation to your chest coming to your hand, like we were talking about, that gives you that whip. It gives you that snap of the throw, like you're cracking a towel, but also it allows you to be more accurate. So second tip, second thing quarterbacks must do to be a more accurate passer, get your lower half involved with the throw. Don't be solely an upper half thrower. Don't just be so focused on keeping your front hand tight. You have to combine the lower half with the upper half. And when you guys can do that, you're a much more accurate passer. You have a much more consistent release point, and you have more torque on the ball, which is always good. Okay, so let's watch the thing full speed one more time again. I hope that makes sense. If you guys have any questions on this, don't hesitate to leave those in the comments. I know it can be a lot sometimes, and it's a lot to think about if you're new to the position, but trust me, this position is not a position where you can only focus on just one thing and just go out there and play. There are a lot of different things moving. There's a lot of moving parts, football IQ, throwing mechanics, weight transfer, all that, but that's why we break it up into parts, and that's why we take things piece by piece. You don't just go out there and throw and try to work on everything all at once. Watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Burrow transferring the weight, having the chest come to the hand, and staying square. Okay, so now on the run, being accurate, it's a lot of the same mechanics, right? Like your release point matters. Like you obviously look at Kyler here. His chest is going to be coming through. He's got that consistent release point. He's trying to stay square, but we're going to mainly focus on the lower half on the run, right? So the goal is to obviously have a consistent release point when we're trying to be more accurate. But on the run, what so many quarterbacks are inconsistent with is that that throwing side foot and their leg kick will screw them all up, right? So you see how Kyler, he's making this throw towards the sideline, right? So when you guys go to throw, the number one thing is on the run, you have to load your hips, right? So how do you load your hips to the target? You step with your throwing side foot in the direction of the throw, because that's what will get your hips there. A good simple way to get used to it, especially if you're a beginner, is you want to get your belly button towards the target. So when you step with your throwing side foot, that's when you start that shoulder rotation. They call it that dissociation, if you will, where your hips are going towards the target and your shoulders stay back, right? So that's what this is. So he's stepping towards the target, hips are going there, shoulders go backwards, right? And when you have that, that's going to obviously give you torque. But to be accurate, you got to make sure that we stay squared up to this thing. You guys remember what I mean by when I say squared? Your shoulders and your hips both want to be angled at that target, right? So that's exactly what Kyler does. He steps, hips and his shoulders are both angled there. He's rotating back. Now, this is the part that makes or breaks QBs. Either this step is not a solid step and it doesn't slow them down, or they step towards the sideline, or maybe they do exactly everything like this, but this left leg kicks towards the sideline, right? So when your left leg's kicking towards the sideline, guess where your hips are going to be going? Your hips are going to be going towards the sideline. And guess where your arm's going to go? Your arm's going to go back towards the inside, because remember, your body's on a midline. So when you go away from it, your arm flies. And then guess where we're missing? We're missing right to left. It's all connected, fellas. It's all connected by that midline, how square you're going to be staying, and how you guys load your hips or transfer your weight to the target, right? So you see Kyler, he does a great job of kicking the leg through at the target there. You almost want to think of it like you have sand on the tip of your toes and you're trying to kick that sand at the target because that allows you to stay square to it. That allows you to have that snappiness of the release because your hips and your shoulders stay square, just like how in the pocket, we want my hips and my shoulders to stay square. And then obviously you can deliver that accurate shot downfield. And there's a very tight window to throw in. So that's how you guys can be more accurate on the run. The third thing that you must do to be more accurate, especially on the run, keep those hips and those shoulders squared up. Step in the direction of the throw with the throwing side foot. Make sure it's a solid step and kick that non-throwing side leg all the way through at the direction of the throw. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Kyler getting out of the pocket and being accurate and consistent on the run here. All right, guys, we want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to leave those in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. I always appreciate the feedback. And it's always great hearing from you guys. Helps me come up with new ideas for the page, so I always appreciate it. And again, fellas, if you're a quarterback, you want to improve your football IQ, you want to get better at reading defenses, you want all the specific defenses you guys can read broken down into specific categories, check out that very first link in the description below for our 400 plus videos on how to read defenses. Very first link below, like I said. I'll see you guys next time.